Hey everyone! The housing market is going really strong these days, and a lot of home buyers out there are looking for that ideal home to buy. The goal of this video is to actually help you guys pick a really good realtor or real estate agent and avoid a bad one. In general, a realtor wears many hats in their job. They're part negotiator, part psychologist, and part housing expert. This entails an understanding of what makes a great house in a great neighborhood. But also their job is to steer you away from buying the wrong house on the wrong street. Ideally, they're your guide, chaperone, and handler in one of the biggest purchases of your life. Unfortunately, I think a lot of realtors and real estate agents, from my experience, really suck out there. A colleague of mine even once described them as used car salesmen at their very worst. You might be asking why I believe that most real estate agents out there are subpar. Well, I've been a full-time real estate investor or house buyer for the last 11 years. My job was to find houses to buy and renovate, and that entailed talking to a lot of realtors in my day-to-day activities. During that time, I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of real estate agents day in and day out. Don't get me wrong, I think that there are fantastic realtors out there. But just like in all businesses, great people, or in this case, great realtors, are hard to find. Great realtors not only guide you through the housing process smoothly, but I've noticed over the years that they have two great qualities. They know the house market like the back of their hand, and they are truly great at interpersonal relationships. In short, they are great communicators and great with people. So let's get into it on why I think most are subpar, and then I will tell you the characteristics or traits to look for in a great one. So if you're interested, keep watching. But in the meantime, if you're liking this so far, do me a favor and hit the like and subscribe button to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. Okay, so why are most realtors not very good? Well, firstly, the barrier to entry to being a realtor is quite low. There's no higher educational prerequisite or mandatory degree to enter this industry. So starting off the bat, this explains why there's so many mediocre realtors out there today. The real estate profession is a vocational school that usually takes 4 to 6 months to complete to being a certified real estate agent. Going through it myself because I thought it would give me an edge in buying houses, I can tell you it's not that hard. Secondly, I have found the bad realtors out there are really not an expert in the area that they're representing clients in. The bad realtors do not have an intimate knowledge of which streets are good and which ones to stay away from. And as a home buyer looking for direction, this becomes a liability. Imagine buying a house on a street, and then after you move in, you realize that you bought a house on a street with neighbors that cause a lot of trouble. Many times, realtors or real estate agents cover different towns and areas, so they often have a very shallow general knowledge of an area, but are masters of none. And because they're not experts of that specific area, many times they don't have an intimate grasp of current housing values in the neighborhoods that you want to buy in. Many times they can't even begin to tell you why one house sold for way more than the other despite being the same size and near each other. On a side note, if you're curious of why housing is so expensive these days, check out my video up there after this one where I break that down. But getting back to house values, the great realtors have a very strong opinion on why certain houses are more valuable or sought after than others, and they will point out the differences to you. This has to do with the level of finishes in the house, or the quality of the painting, or perhaps it's the quality of the kitchen, amongst other things. I was once helping a friend buy a house and got on a conference call with a realtor and him, and I was asking about the pricing of the area, and she said that she needed to get back to us. This little indication tells me that she has no idea about the pricing for that specific neighborhood. This becomes a liability when helping their clients in a very competitive market to make an offer. How high or low should I go in the offer price to get that house? Another thing that makes a bad realtor a liability is that many of them can't even tell you what makes a house great despite walking into hundreds of houses. A lot of the times, they leave it up to the buyer to decide. Now you do have to acknowledge that realtors are in the business of buying and selling houses for their clients and not building houses. They are not expert general contractors, plumbers, or electricians, or interior designers for that matter. But the great real estate agents do have some general knowledge of the fundamentals of the house, where they can point to areas of concern or areas of benefit. So given that, what are things you as a first-time home buyer should really look at when you pick your realtor? Ideally, you want to hire a realtor that is an expert in the areas or neighborhoods that you want to buy a house in. They know these neighborhoods like the back of their hand because they eat it and breathe it every day for years and years. They not only know the best parts of the neighborhood or area, but they can steer you away from the questionable parts of an area where it's not easily noticeable. As a very extreme example, I remember a story a friend of mine told me that a buyer purchased a home thinking that home was in the best school district. But after closing on it, she later found out that it was in another school district. The dividing line between the best school district and the other school district was one street. If she would have bought on the other side of the street, she would have been fine. This is one example of why you want a realtor to be an expert in the area that you want to buy in. A great realtor being an expert in the area, they have a pulse on the market on house values. They have up-to-date knowledge of what houses sold for what, how many offers, and usually how much over or under asking. One time, I remember I was looking for a house to buy in an area that was not familiar to me. When I went to these neighborhoods with my realtor and driving through them, I could easily tell she was an expert in the area. She knew that area like the back of her hand. During our trip, she pointed to a multitude of houses where she represented buyers and sellers over the years. She was rattling off how much buyer interest there was on the house, and then how many offers it had, and finally how much it sold for in the end. She knew why certain houses were more desirable than others, whether it's the curb appeal of the house or the layout of the house, or maybe that specific home offered an amenity that others didn't. She would also mention new outlying neighborhoods or pockets where people were moving to next. This realtor was a rare breed and at the top of her game, and I completely trusted her opinion to guide me through this housing process in an area that I wasn't familiar with. With that being said, never go with a part-time realtor, just as you would never go with a part-time CPA. Part-time realtors will never be intimately connected to that local housing market versus a full-time realtor to give you the guidance that you need. Remember, this is one of the biggest purchases of your life. So try to find the best realtor out there to ensure its success. Another thing that does not get emphasized much is that great realtors have tremendous relationships with other agents in the industry over the years. Many times, this agent is one of the top producers in their firm, so seek those realtors out. There's a reason why they have done more deals than their peers, have represented more buyers and sellers, and get all the business. Going with a top producer is many times an awesome shortcut to finding a great realtor. Real estate agents, in my mind, are a people business first and a house business second. The agents with the best relationships many times get notified first on up-and-coming houses that have yet to hit the market. You as a buyer or seller have a competitive edge if your agent is well connected, because agents tend to like to work with well-liked and competent agents over and over again. Real estate agents with great relationships tend to get the first call on up-and-coming houses and also tend to get their calls returned faster. In addition, and this definitely does not get talked about much, is that sometimes they get insider tips or hints that might be a benefit to their client in a competitive market. I've heard countless times where realtors would say that they would love to work with a specific agent over again. People are people. While realtors will represent their clients to the best of their ability, they will always prefer to work with agents that they've had prior good experiences with. The reason being that even though there are two opposing parties, all of them are trying to carry that deal to success where everyone is satisfied. Real estate agents, just like everybody else, wants to work with well-experienced and well-liked peers to avoid any surprises. If you think about it, it makes perfect sense. If a housing deal goes south, not only are their clients going to be disappointed, but it also affects the agent's payday on the sale of the house. So these are the guidelines when you search for that great realtor. And these rules are not hard and rigid. The more marks that you can check off, the better. However, you want a realtor that is an expert in the area that you want to buy in, knowing exactly how much houses are selling for and why. You also want a full-time realtor that has the pulse of the market. Also, an expert on house values for the area that you're looking at. A great realtor has excellent relationships with other real estate agents due to previous house deals. One of the top producers in their firm is a great indication of a great realtor. And to state the obvious, they are a great communicator and negotiator. I hope the criteria I mentioned before helps you find a great realtor. They're out there. It just takes a little digging. If you enjoyed this video, check out my other videos on personal finance, where I talk about other housing markets and also the secrets to the best housing markets in the future. I'll see you on the next one.